Hey, good morning, everyone. We are the community. We'll just do some quick introductions and then hop right into it. I'm Tom. I was previously a lifeguard, but I've always had an interest in tech and wanted to challenge myself. So instead of water, I took the dive into the world of tech through the amazing School of Code.
Hi, my name is Fadima. I'm a recent physics graduate, fascinated by the unknown and the universe. Now I'd like to ignite my coding hobby to light a new career path into tech.
Hi, I'm Michael, previously a chemist. I'm swapping reactions for React components and hoping to synthesize some happiness along the way.
Hi, I'm Valentina, and I've been working for the last 4 years as a mechanical engineer in the automotive industry. And now, with the help of School of Code team, I have discovered the beauty and challenges of code.
Hi, I'm Amelia. I was previously a children's, youth and families worker within churches, where I was keeping lots of young people safe. But now I'm learning how to code in order to keep more people safe online.
Nice. So the problem put to us by our client was finding a solution to improve the organization and delivery of the School of Code community classes. These community classes are another public initiative by the School of Code to introduce as large and as diverse a group of people as possible to the world of tech, and the whole process is run by the School of Code's boot campers. This involved creating a curriculum, a format for the sessions, setting up an event through Eventbrite and marketing it, all the while liaising with the coaches to ensure that it followed their vision. We felt that the biggest problem with these classes was the disconnect between the boot campers planning the event and the actual organization of the event itself. With that in mind, we'd now like to present to you Eventure, a web app that allows the boot campers to create events and prospective attendees to sign up for them. We considered these to be the two user types for this app, and we will now take you through their journeys.
As an attendee, I've potentially come across the site via a search engine such as Google while looking for somewhere to learn how to code. Or perhaps I've seen it shared on the School of Code social media. When I arrive on the site, it's really clear what the app does, a place where I can learn about events. There's a nice featured event with a countdown that encourages me to sign up quickly. As I scroll down, I can see that there are loads more different events that I could potentially attend, depending on what I'm interested in. I'm quite interested in learning a bit more about HTML and CSS, so I'm going to click on that event. When I click on the event, I can see a more in-depth description, as well as where the event is taking place and who the speakers are. I've decided I want to attend, so I'm going to click the register button. When I click the button, I'm redirected using Auth0 and prompted to log in. I can either sign up with an account or use my Google login. Now that I'm signed up, I can either register on the homepage by clicking the register button or clicking back on the event to register. Up at the top, I can see that there's a new thing, a My Events page. When I click on that, I can see what events I'm attending. This allows me as the attendee to be in charge of what events I want to attend, but also I can easily unregister if needed. When you initially register, you are sent an email to confirm that you are registered. This helps to remind you about the event. We've also added a little 204 error to encourage people to sign up for more events. This is the end of the attendee journey.
So one of the first problems we faced as a team was differentiating between people attending the community classes and those organising them. We've achieved this by assigning a rule to the Auth0 API that we call during authentication. The rule adds a role to our access token in the form of a permission. Okay, and if you assign that, Tom, and we go back to our demo. Nice. So if you log in with an account that's now got that assigned, Tom, wonderful. So you see at the top, we've actually got a create event button added to the nav bar. If you click there, Tom, we'll get you to set up a quick event. So I'm going to get you to give us a CSS talk, so whenever works for you. Excellent. Cool. So title, Tom Bennett tells us about the joys of CSS. Nice. And Tom Bennett's a COVID secure guy, so it's going to be on Zoom. Let's say that the rule of 6 still applies there, Tom. Add some tickets. So one of the nice features we've included here is the ability to add markdown to our descriptions to make them appear a bit more interesting. So hopefully in true Blue Peter style, Tom's going to have something he's prepared earlier to stick in here. Nice. Okay, cool. And if you add a picture as well for the event, Tom. Awesome. So if we go back to the events listings now, you should see in chronological order where that event fits in. So the second event, the joys of CSS. Awesome. So if you click on there, Tom, so with that part of the access token with the role, we're also conditionally rendering an edit button and a delete button. So click on the pencil. Awesome. So perhaps the lockdown's going to end and you can, I don't know, where would you like to give your talk, Tom?
Well, the number of people that would be sure to love to hear about the joys of CSS going to be somewhere it's like Wembley.
Nice. I think you're going to need a few more tickets for that, Tom.
A couple of zeros will do it.
Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, okay. So save that. So yeah, I mean, these events can be edited and every now and then they may be cancelled. So if you go and click on the trash can icon, Tom. Awesome. That should now be deleted from the list of event systems. Of course, just to sum up, we're using roles to conditionally render the ability to create an event, edit an event, and delete an event. I'm just going to pass you back to Amelia now, who's going to talk about our user research.
In order to create our app, we had to undertake user research. This enabled us to make sure our app was useful for those who needed to use it. We started off by talking to our client, who helped us understand who the key stakeholders were. These are the attendees, the School of Code coaches and staff, and the boot campers who'd be running the sessions. We started off by sending out online surveys, in particular to the boot campers who just ran the community class, to understand their point of view. This highlighted a few issues. From here, we undertook one-to-one interviews with School of Code coaches and staff and some of the boot campers who helped run the sessions. This helped us to really understand what problems they were facing while running the sessions. One problem that kept coming up was this constant back and forward communication that the boot campers had to keep having with the School of Code coaches and staff in order to know how many people had signed up for an event. The School of Code staff had to create the event, but also had to give constant updates on the amount of tickets sold. So therefore, we decided to create Eventure, an app that allows the boot campers to create, edit, and delete an event, but also where the attendees can register.
So following our market research, we identified two users, the event attendee and the event organizer. We know that all our users are people of different backgrounds interested in getting new skills in tech. After collating this information from our users, we implemented the Disney ideation method to narrow down all our ideas and pass them through the dreamer, realist, and finally the critic stage. We then reached the decision on our final functionality of our application, our MVP, which Valentine will talk a little bit more about.
Yes, so after going through the research and the Disney ideation processes, we've decided that the core purpose of our MVP would be a product that will have two types of users, an attendee and an organizer, where the attendee will be able to see and register to an upcoming event, and the organizer create and publish a new event. Now, not everything that you saw during the demo was part of the original MVP, but more of the MLP. So for example, the participant my event page and edit page were added along the way by continuously improving the plan through constant review with our client.
Another important part before we got to creating the app was the planning that we used in order to help us to work more as an agile team. We started off by using Trello, where we could keep track of all of our different bits of information from our research to our Disney ideation. We also used Draw.io in order to create our user journeys, one for the attendee and one for the organizer. We also created component trees as well as understanding what technologies we would use for what different part of our app. We then moved on to creating wireframes using Draw.io. Initially, these were very simple and just helped us to understand the layout of the page. We then used Figma to help us understand what button you would click and where it would take you. We then also used Figma to help us create a rough color palette. This helped us to understand what our app might look like once it was created. Throughout the whole process, we used Jira to help us to work more as an asynchronous team, in particular over the Christmas holidays. This allowed us to put our user journeys onto Jira and help us to break down to understand what components needed to be created when, in order to ensure that everything could link up.
So for our project, we decided on the following tech stack: For front-end tech, we went with React Framework, Next.js. So the reason why we chose Next.js was thanks to server-side rendering, make pages that are fast. Because of this, Next.js takes care of many performance optimizations for us, as rendering our application on the server lifts burden off rendering off our client. This means that for users on slower devices, they can experience much faster loading times. Secondly, Next.js gives us a quick and easy way to create pages for our website by its built-in file-based routing. And lastly, which is the most important in our case, the search engine optimization. This means optimizing your website to get more organic traffic from search engines such as Google. We want to make sure that our website has visibility to reach a wider audience, and SEO is very important for this. And Next shines in this department by providing this by default.
In order to start our app, we used Material UI and CSS modules. Initially, Material UI was new to us all because we'd never previously used it, and this created a slight challenge. But by reading the documentation, we began to understand how you could style each part that we'd rendered. This enabled us to use both CSS modules and Material UI to design our app.
So during the course of developing our app, we experienced some computer issues across the team. By Dockerizing our Express server, we were able to eliminate these issues. Docker allows us to run our app in a predictable environment that performs consistently both locally and when deployed. We did this by pushing our Docker image to the Elastic Container Registry on AWS and deploying on EC2 via the Elastic Container Service. We used to automate our builds and our blue-green deployments. At this point, we had some issues with the lack of SSL certificate on the connection between our front and back end. So to resolve this, we registered a domain, got an SSL certificate, and added it to a load balancer that points at our container instance.
So for our database, due to the nature of our data and the relationship between events and tickets being dependent on the events, we went with a SQL database. And for this, we went with Postgres, as there's all the functionality we need, and it's something that we were already familiar with from the bootcamp. This, along with hosting it on Heroku, which was nice and simple, allowed us to get our database set up quickly, allowing us to shift more focus to our front-end functionality and get it working with some real data handling. For our front-end Next service, we originally looked at deploying it on Netlify, but soon discovered that it wasn't the simplest or most effective platform to host our server-side rendered application on. So after a little bit more research, we found that Vercel catered for server-side rendered applications natively, while also still providing continuous deployment.
The reason we chose to go with Auth0 as the authentication and authorization provider is because they have a really good and easy to follow documentation, tutorials, workshops, and even sample application. And as you have probably noticed, by having a custom server built with Express Generator, we had to make sure that we are restricting the users from accessing some of the APIs that are already authenticated or have the right access permissions associated to their account. So by using Auth0, we managed to implement this successfully.
We've learned an absolutely huge amount over the course of this project, as much, if not more so, than the entire 12 weeks of the bootcamp prior. Some of the key points here include adopting agile methodologies and working in a fully remote team. Development is stereotypically quite independent, but in actuality it is very much a team sport. Due to the current circumstances, we've obviously been forced into a fully remote situation, and we've really seen the value in agile and that process of breaking down the problem, planning our sprints, and shortening that feedback loop to be able to iterate on our product and plan further in our daily sprints and retros, keeping us all on the same page and helping us to work asynchronously, especially over the Christmas holidays. Something else that's helped us with that is the Git workflow. Getting into that habit of pushing, pulling, merging, and branching was really, really useful. And it's something that's basically second nature to us now, which we think is a very valuable skill to have. And then we have that last point there, researching and implementing technologies that are new to us. Something else that was very much stressed over the course of the bootcamp is that we weren't there to learn code, but rather to learn how to learn. The fact that Next.js, Ortho, and Docker are all big parts of our application are testament to that. They're all things that we touched on very briefly in the bootcamp, but not in any great depth. And yet we managed to implement them successfully and effectively, which we think is a massive success for us.
From product development point of view, our first priority would be to make the application responsive so that it's compatible with all devices. And in the future, we are also considering adding a forum area where we can welcome the users into the SOC community, keeping them in the loop and in contact with one another.
So as Tom mentioned earlier, we made a huge transformational journey and unbelievable progress in the past month for this project. Before we go into questions, we want to do a big shout out to Maxine, who is part of community team, but had to leave due to personal circumstances. She's involved in the planning stage, had loads of great ideas, and really got into the habit of keeping us on track at the beginning. We also want to shout out to our mentors, the SSE coaches, the economists, the guidance on AWS, and kindly giving us AWS credits. And finally, thank you for listening.